All right, here tonight on the Five for Fighting podcast, we have a dude who I was fortunate enough to see play in South Florida a little bit when the Admirals would come to visit the Everblades. And if you listened to last week's episode, you would know that me and my buddy have this dude in contention for possibly the heavyweight champ of the league of the ECHL. That is one Mr. Anthony Collins. Anthony, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time on this beautiful Monday evening to talk some hockey, talk some fights, and some ECHL hockey. And, I'm looking forward to kind of going through your career and seeing what the future holds for Anthony Collins here.
Love hearing that. Yeah, no, like I said, I'm excited to come on. I've been listening from a couple podcasts that you had before, and just love seeing all the recaps of all the fights over the weekend and stuff like that you're putting on YouTube. So you're doing a hell of a job.
Oh, you know what? I have gone over this so many times. I'm really surprised that the league hasn't taken my shit down because from what I understand, like a couple years before, anything ECHL fight related on YouTube got taken down. So I've just been waiting for everything to just get canned.
well, hopefully they're not hearing this and you can keep doing it. Because like I said, you're doing a hell of a job, and it makes scouting for guys, potential opponents in upcoming games a lot easier than scrolling through Instat and stuff like that. So keep going.
Look at that. You're in my notes over here. I was going to ask if you're a video guy down the line, but we'll get to it, man. You started out playing in the BC League, but before we kind of get to that, when did you start playing hockey? Were you kind of a typical Canadian kid? You were born on ice basically, or did you kind of start playing a little bit later?
Yeah, pretty boring story for me. Just like most Canadian kids, started playing when I was 3 or 4 years old, or I should say I started skating at 3 and 4 years old. Around 5 and 6, kind of got into the just hockey aspect of it. Just try to learn how to skate first, and then really just fell in love with it and took off from there, going through Langley minor hockey, really good program there, and working my way up.
Right on, man. So, well, you started off in the BC League in 06, 07. When did the fighting kind of start? Because it looked like it was probably like around 09 once you were in the MJHL. Your PIMs kind of like peaked up a little bit there. You broke the 100 PIM mark. So when did the fighting kind of start for you, man?
Yeah, I remember. Believe it or not, it's crazy. I mean, growing up, I thought I was a goal scorer, and I actually did half decent doing that. And then, I had an old school coach in the year in Prince George, and he told me one game, he's like, "Hey, if you want to earn the respect of some of the veteran older guys, 20-year-olds on our team, I think that it would be really key and really important for this season if you just showed them that you had their back and fight, win, lose, or draw. You just got to show up." And I was like, okay. And one game, he pulled me aside before the game and he said, "Hey," he's like, "so I'm going to start you so you can give you a chance to fight right off the hop. And if you do that, I'm going to play you a lot for the rest of the game because I think it will show a lot for those guys." So I remember going back from his office and just shitting my pants, being like, "Oh man, like don't really know what I'm doing here, like, but I got to do it," kind of thing. And I can't even remember now who I lined up against, but I lined up against the biggest guy on their other team. And I didn't even say, "You want to go?" Nothing. I was so nervous that I just shoved him and he shoved me back. And next thing you know, gloves were flying, fists were flying. And next thing you know, I was going to the box and I was, all right, that wasn't so bad. Like, that wasn't so bad. I did all right, like held my own kind of thing. And after that, I kind of went on a little bit of a tear and just kind of realized that it wasn't really a big deal, nothing to be scared about to do that.
Yeah. So was it kind of like sporadic when you fought? Because obviously, from my time with interviewing guys in your role and the enforcers and everything like that, I find that their first kind of few fights, it's just like, you're trying to find your legs. So it's almost like you're just flailing your arms everywhere. And, it's kind of sporadic. Or you said you were shitting your pants. So I'm assuming you really didn't have a game plan. It was probably just don't get punched in the face right too much, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think any game plan or anything that I may have had going into that fight, I think as soon as the adrenaline and the nerves kicked in, I think it was just a free for all. I think it was just throw as many punches as you can. And like you said, try not to get hit and hit him more than you got hit. So, it ended up being a pretty good one for me. And it really built my confidence, to be honest with you, to know that, hey, like I got hit a couple of times, like I hit him a couple of times. It really wasn't a big deal. And really the biggest thing was how much respect I got from my teammates, my coaches, other players on their team. And I think that's kind of like what really got me into the role and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, for sure, man. So you're kind of doing this stuff in junior and you're going through, you're playing for, Victoria, Burnaby, stuff like that. Was there ever any talks of you getting drafted at all? I know obviously you haven't been drafted to the NHL or anything like that, but was there ever any talks or anything like that for you getting drafted at all?
No, I was kind of a late bloomer with hockey and stuff like that. So, I was just fortunate enough to be playing in the BCHL. And like I said, I was really in the BCHL just trying to find what am I as a player. Like I said, growing up, everyone focused so much on like skill building and trying to score goals, and everyone wanted to be the goal scorer on a team. And so going through junior, I was kind of trying to figure out like, what am I here? Can I score? Can I fight? Can I, be physical? What am I here? So I was kind of like a little bit like Bambi trying to find my legs through junior. And like you said, near the end of my junior career in the MJ and stuff like that, I kind of like found my niche of what I was good at.
Right. Absolutely. So your first year pro, you actually end up in the SPHL with the Mississippi Surge. How did you end up there?
It's actually funny because after it's a long story, but I love to tell the boys on the bus this story, kind of how I got into pro hockey. But from age 20 to 22, 23, after junior, I didn't play. So I didn't go to college, anything like that. And so I was kind of, I was working and I just kind of living a normal life, and I just felt like something was missing. Like, I want to get back into it, but how do I get back into it? I mean, I don't got an agent. I don't got anything. I don't have crazy numbers in junior that people are just calling me off the hook. Like, took a couple of years off. How do I get back into it? So I literally emailed every pro team, probably minor pro team out there, just saying like, hey, here's my elite prospects. Like, give me a chance. And of course, like I said, I didn't have a crazy good junior career. So a lot of no's. And I actually went down on a tryout to the Knoxville Ice Bears that same year at the start of the year. And it was actually during the NHL lockout that year. And so it was actually kind of a cool experience. So I went down to camp there, and they had set up a game with the Huntsville Havoc, a big rival of theirs, at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. So we actually played an exhibition game in the Predators Arena with a ton of people there. Everything was bright lights, everything like that. So it was kind of cool for an SPHL exhibition game to be there. Long story short, I got cut. That year was crazy, obviously, with the NHL lockout, guys playing in the SP, guys playing in the coast that shouldn't normally been there. So I went back home. I got cut and I went back home, and I was like, man, like I feel like I can play. Like, how do I do it? And I had an old skills coach back home that I was just skating with to try to stay in shape and stuff like that. And he's like, hey, I got this connection. Let me call this guy down in Mississippi in the SPHL and let me see if I can get you on. And I ended up going down there, and I knew it was kind of a last shot for me. So I knew I had to make the most of it. So I kind of just made the most of my my chance down there.
So when you get to camp and stuff with Mississippi, are you just trying to go with anybody and everybody?
Yeah. So actually, I didn't even get to go to camp in Mississippi because, like I said, I went to camp in Knoxville, and I actually went to Mississippi to play regular season in about December.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but to answer your question in kind of a roundabout way is, yeah, it was just basically I need to make the most out of my opportunities. And I remember my first SPHL game, first SPHL shift. I think back then I didn't even have a name bar. They didn't even have a name bar for me when I came in. And I was like, told myself, I'm like, hey, like, you got to go out there. I was like, who's the toughest guy on the other team? Like, I got to make a name for myself because, I've already been cut one time. I said, this is kind of my last shot if I want to make pro a thing for me. And I went out there, and we were in Columbus, the Columbus Cottonmouths. And I remember back checking and just two-handing the biggest D-man I saw in the back legs. And I said, let's go. And I actually think the video's on YouTube, and, I did fairly well for myself. And then kind of just after that, stuck with it.
Yeah, he ended up fighting a guy named Kyle Johnson is who he ended up fighting there.
Yeah. Bring back some memories.
Yeah, no kidding. So at this point, you end up in the ECHL the following year with South Carolina. How was it with your first year in the ECHL?
I was very fortunate because, like I said, I only played, really half a season in the SPHL, coming in late and stuff like that. So, I mean, I didn't really know. I was honestly planning on just going back and playing another year in the SPHL. And in the summer, I got a call, and it was actually the Hershey Bears. And they were like, hey, like, we want you to come to camp. And I thought it was a prank call. I was like, there's no way guy from the SPHL, what I just went through, is going to get a chance. And he's like, hey, yeah, we want you to sign with our affiliate in South Carolina and come to camp, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, I obviously go to South Carolina, and honestly, I was blessed to have a coach that now is the assistant coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Spencer Carberry, as my coach. And, he, as a player, played a very similar hard-nosed style of hockey. So he really took me under his wing because I was a very raw player, a raw fighter, and he's just a raw human, really. And he really took me under his wing and kind of showed me what he expected of me, how to play the role, how to get myself involved. And, I don't think I would have as long as a pro career as I've had now without having him for my first couple of years.
Right. So at this point, you're in the ECHL, you're with South Carolina, and you're starting to embrace the role a bit more. And, this is kind of your niche. You found your niche. Are you starting to do any like off ice training or like fight specific training at all by any chance?
Yeah, it was actually awesome. After practice, Carberry used to work with me all the time on stuff, just all the time. It's like grabs and holds and stuff like that. And I was also like you said, I kind of got good at it. And so I was like, well, I want to get better at it. And, I went to the guys that were older on the team that had been doing it for a long time. I was like, hey, like, can you show me some things? And, even off the ice, like you were saying, we would put on our practice jerseys and just have some of these older guys that have been in a lot of fights show me holds, grabs, like what I should do, what happens if he goes left, things like that. So, I kind of just tried to become a student and soak up as much as I could, like a sponge, and just learn as much as I could.
Right on. Well, it's interesting to me. And so you're actually only like the second current player I've ever had on the podcast. Everybody who I've had on beforehand has been pretty much, guys who have been retired for quite a while. I take that back. You're the third because I had Justin Schmidt on, but he just came out of retirement for Columbus after like years of not playing. But it's interesting to me to kind of see the stats because I'm sure as you know, and as many fans know who listen to the podcast, fighting is it's really on its way out of the game-ish. I think it'll always be there, but in terms of like, tough guys such as yourself or like the Travis Howes, the Kyle Neubers, guys like that, they're just not being bred in junior anymore. Like if you go back, because you played in the BCHL circa 2008, so it was a completely different brand of hockey as to what you get in the BCHL today. So at that point, was there ever anybody you kind of try to like emulate yourself after coming up? Like I don't know if you like look at Brian McGrattan tapes and you want to, maybe try to do what McGrattan does, or look at Bob Probert tapes. Did you ever try to emulate yourself?
I mean, growing up, I was a big Bob Probert fan growing up.
Who isn't, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you didn't like watching Bob Probert play, you probably shouldn't be watching hockey. You should probably be watching figure skating or something like that. But I like Bob Probert. I don't know if I necessarily, tried to mimic his fighting style, but definitely like got the juices going when you'd watch a Bob Probert scrap, like that. But nowadays, like you say, hockey has changed, like you got to bring something else. Here's a perfect example is I've been watching, the ECHL playoffs right now. I've watched, the Florida and the Jacksonville series. And you got Travis Howe playing a regular shift, blocking shots, being physical, being disciplined. Like, he's bringing something else to the table other than, just that he's a super tough guy, and I think that's so valuable that, he's just upping his stock in my opinion, that he's being relied upon to play a regular shift and doing well at it. So I think that ups the stock for guys like that. And so, nowadays, I think my favorite player now with this role is a Ryan Reeves. I think that he's the most effective, toughest fourth line guy out there. He'll absolutely fucking steamroll you and also always answer the bell. I think he's just an absolute nuclear weapon out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm a huge Reeves guy too. I absolutely love Ryan Reeves. And yeah, you're totally right. It's like you can't, and I don't like using the term one dimensional because I think to be a fighter on ice and in the enforcer role in itself is the hardest role in sports. But the way it's gone now, especially with the ECHL and the AHL, with the 10 fight rule, you can't be just fighting every night. You have to bring something else to the table as well, which I get it. I still don't like the 10 fight rule regardless. But I definitely get what you're saying. Do you like the 10 fight rule at all?
I hate it. I just think that, I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to, eliminate someone having that 10th forward, not be able to barely tie his skates up, but he's absolute, savage and just goes out there for one shift a game and fight. I haven't in probably the last 5 years seen somebody like that, but I get that's what they're trying to do. But I also think they don't realize that when you add that 10 fights in, I mean, 10 fights can go quick. I mean, we saw some guys this year, you know, on the fight leaderboard, like boom, out of the gates, like 5-6 right out of the gates. And now they're going, oh shit, like I got 60 games left and I only got 5 fights left. And I just don't like it for the reason that if I'm at 9 fights, I know, you know, somebody hits my linemate from behind. Now I got to not just naturally react. I got to think, hey, you know, am I okay with paying the fine to the ECHL and taking the suspension? Or am I going to just fight the guy, you know, and then take that suspension? Or am I not going to fight the guy and let my teammate down? I just don't think players should have to think that much about something so kind of ticky-tack in that aspect. I think that it should, you know, if they want to have the one-dimensional fighter gone, I think you up it to 15, 18 fights. I think it's a lot more reasonable.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And like I said, if you're going to have a limit in, I've said it before, I would think at least make it 20, because 10 in a 72 game season is just so little. And like you said, man, I think by the time December rolled around, I think it was Robideau from, I think it's Kansas City, who already had 10 fights. It's like, well, December's already over, so you're like, you can't fight anymore. And it gets to the point where you're kind of handcuffed. And again, I get what the league is trying to do, and I've talked about it with other fans who kind of agree with the 10 fight rule, which it's very slim actually, which is, it's funny to hear that. But it's the same thing. It's like, so because you have 9 fights, your team has to pay for it. In the aspect of liberties are now going to be taken against your team, because we're going to like, oh, okay, well, we can go play fuck around because Collins is at 9 fights tonight, you know? So I like, it's almost kind of counterproductive in my opinion. And just from when I've talked to guys, of course, all the old school guys I've had on the podcast, they'd look at me like I was crazy to even talk about a 10 fight limit, but it's just what it is now. And it's like, I think I even saw it with like Kyle Neuber this year when I got to see him down in Florida playing. Was like, you know, there was a span where one, it was hard for him to get any fighters because it's which you fought him, which was pretty cool. I was actually watching that game in my living room when I got to see you go him up there in Norfolk. But so it was like a stretch where he couldn't get anybody to fight, for one, but two, it was like he was almost like not. He didn't want to get it all in one go. And, talking with him before, it was the same thing. It's like, I think 10 is just too little. You got to up it to at least 15 or 20.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think a lot of people, when you get the mixed reviews, like, oh, well, I like the 10 fight rule or whatever. I think that they forget that, first of all, it doesn't make sense, because if we're going to be, if you go down the path of people that want to say like, well, it's an NHL affiliated league, they want it clean cut, like prospects for the NHL. Well, the NHL doesn't have a fight rule.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if we're following everything the NHL does, why are we now putting in a 10 fight rule? And two, let's not forget that, it's the ECHL. I mean, it's an entertainment business. I mean, that's what we're in, for some of these small markets. I mean, people come out because they want to see tough, rugged hockey, goals. I always say, people ask like, oh, who's the favorite player on every team? Well, the favorite player, fan favorite on every single team is the top goalie, the top scorer, and the tough guy on every single team. So, I think that, if the ECHL wants to expand the new teams in different markets and stuff like that, I mean, the revenue for teams to make, you're just lowering the revenue that can come in, in an entertainment world when you're putting 10 fights rule and things like that. I don't like it. I never will like it. But that's just kind of my piece on it.
No, it's how it is, man. And I was fortunate enough to get it submitted to me. I believe his name was Harry Roundtree, who submitted me the video of when Blatchman and Howe were going at it at center ice. That fucking video, because of just the emotion and shit could pop off here at center ice during warmups. That got like 2-something million views, not on YouTube, but like throughout, going on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, calculating up all the numbers. That thing probably has close to 4 million views. And so it's like, it draws people in. I don't understand why the ECHL itself wouldn't want that. And like you said, it's a development league. We want to develop players. But if the NHL doesn't have a 10 fight rule, why would we put it in the ECHL? And like you said as well, people like the rough and tumble hockey. I had more fun at the ECHL games this past year when I was down in Florida as a season ticket holder. I had more fun there than any NHL game I've been to in the past, probably close to 10 years. And it's like, it doesn't, I don't mean to sound rude, but nobody goes to the ECHL saying, I really want to see the next Ovechkin tonight, like, does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. It's not there. And I mean, I just don't think it takes away from finding a next Ovechkin or a real high end skill player, because 90% of the time, tough guys are fighting other tough guys. So it's not like freaking Neuber is going after freaking, a Martin on Jacksonville or something, like a top player, like usually, Howe and Neuber, and like they know, like everybody knows in the league, like who's who. Like, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. And like you said, like, bad publicity is better than no publicity. So, the more that the ECHL gets their name out there, the more the ECHL, has clips of things, is great, because people are now, hey, the ECHL, oh, did you see that? Did you hear about that? And I just think that, in my opinion, it needs more, rough and tumble hockey.
No, absolutely. One second. Sorry, I hit something on Zoom here. But yeah, no, like I totally agree. And I'll go back to your career for a second. Sorry, I always got to ask certain questions. Then once I get going, I'm like, oh, I think I got more questions to ask. So, my apologies, man. But no, it's always good stuff. So you actually ended up in Quad City, which Quad City was the team that got me into hockey. Where I was actually born there, and they were the Mallards back in the day as well, from the Colonial League days and the UHL. So that was the team that actually got me into hockey. And because of a guy, a good buddy of mine I've had on the podcast, and he's actually uploaded your Mallards fights from when he played out there, Jay out in Iowa. He's the one who really kind of put you on my radar, because this was my first year watching the ECHL. Just this past year, and I'm like, okay. And so I'm going through with a couple buddies, going through stuff of who to look for, because obviously I'm a fight nerd, and I'm looking through the stats and fights and everything like that. And your name came up with my buddy John, and then my buddy Jay was like, hey, go on my YouTube, watch Anthony Collins fights. I'm like, this dude fucking rocks. I'm ready to roll when Collins comes to town. And sure enough, you guys are there when you man, I think it was opening weekend. No, I think it was the second week of the season. You guys had the road trip down in Florida, and like the entire time I'm sitting there just watching you and Corson just fucking run amok, stirring shit up, and it was great. But how was it playing out there in Quad City?
Honestly, we really enjoyed it. Like, my family really enjoyed it. It's a hockey town through and through. I mean, it's a blue collared town, and honestly, for the ECHL level, we got treated very, very well there. And I played for a real old school coach there in Terry Ruskowski, so he loved his tough guys through and through. I mean, if that guy could have a roster of 25 tough guys, he would have. So I mean, I look back at that team, and that's probably one of the toughest teams I played on. I mean, there's a kid that I played with that year, or maybe the second year there in Quad City, that to this day I think is one of the toughest guys I have ever played with in my life, or even seen in pro hockey, that barely played 2 years, maybe 3 years, and then he went, named Paxton LaRue. And this guy was as tough as they come. And he ended up, going and playing in the NLL, National Lacrosse League, and stuff like that, and then kind of just shut it down with sports in general. But he, it was great playing with him too, and just having like both of us out there, and kind of just saying like, who do you want tonight, like kind of to other teams and things like that. And it's crazy. So people listening to this, if you want to look up a tough guy that kind of flew under the radar a little bit, Paxton LaRue.
Absolutely. And I've definitely heard some LaRue stories from Jay. Those are the two when we were talking, because I think we did a Quad City Mallards like tough guy special where we ranked like the top 10. And I want to say he was in the honorable mentions, but I think you broke like number 8 or number 9 on the list. And that's a pretty big feat considering Quad City's rich history of tough guys that they've had. So it definitely put you on my radar for sure at the beginning of the season. And a guy I got to ask you about. So you fought him when you were with South Carolina that year before you went to Quad City, but you actually fought Corey Bellamy. You fought him quite a few times actually. What was it like fighting Corey?
It was great. He was a gamer. He was a complete gamer, man. He wasn't the biggest guy, and he wasn't, necessarily, I wouldn't say the toughest in the league, but every time you asked a guy, he would show up, which I got a lot of respect for guys like that, man. And it was fun. It was really fun. I think early in our careers, I wouldn't say we were both the most technical fighters or anything like that. So they were always super entertaining, a lot of punch throwing and stuff like that. And there was a lot of respect between the two of us. So it was good. It was good that, we both knew our roles, and he was more than willing to oblige all the time.
Absolutely. Well, another dude I got to ask you about that you fought just before you went to Quad City. I think it was a couple weeks before you went, but this dude, tough as shit. Dude played in the Quebec League, like straight out of junior, and it was absolutely nuts to see him play in the LNH. And I think he finished up his career there. But Ryan Hand of Elmira, how was it fighting Hand?
Ryan Hand, I remember that because I had only been to Elmira, I think, twice in my career before that, and we were playing, and we had kind of run away with the score a little bit. I think it was maybe 5-1 with like 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, and we had actually only had 9 forwards with one of our guys hurt. So our coach was like, "Hey, like, Collie, like, I know, like, this, you want to fight this Hand guy, he wants to fight you, but like, if you're going to do it, like, wait till the end of the game so we're not super short. Like, if you could do that for me, that'd be great." So I was like, okay. So Hand kept asking me. I was like, "Hey man, like, just wait till the end, just wait till the end of the game. Like, I can't, my coach says, like, he wants me to play until, there's 5 or 4 minutes left in the game, and then I'll fight you." And he kept coming, egging me on. And finally, with like, I think, a handful of minutes left in the game, I obliged him, and it was a decent go. And he actually, my ear got stuck in my my helmet, the side of my ear loop helmet, and it actually ripped the side of my ear off when I did that. And so they super glued that back together. But no, he was a big tough kid, and it was a good one for sure.
Absolutely. So you get to Rapid City, and actually this year with Rapid City was the year you had, I think, the most fights in a season. You actually had 17, so you're really getting after it a bit out there in Rapid City. So you actually ended up fighting a dude. Well, one sec here, let me pull it up. I just had it up. Sorry, gotta love computer difficulties. But oh yeah, of course. How could I forget? So he's basically like a little Super Ball running around out there. And he still plays. He actually played the ECHL last year for Wheeling, but he leads the ECHL in all-time penalty minutes. But Garrett Hunt, how was it fighting him?
It was I always say it was a cardio fest. I mean, honestly, pound for pound, he's probably one of the tougher guys out there, to be completely honest. I mean, he was, just like you said, like a firecracker, a little firecracker. It was no defense, throw for as long as you could. It would be 45, 50 seconds of me going toe to toe, and obviously being the bigger guy, because like you said, he wasn't the biggest guy out there. So you were literally, it was like punching the punching bag. Like, you could punch him for 45, 50 seconds as hard as you can, and he would throw back the best he got, and he would never go down. I would give that guy, he would never go down, and he would just stand and trade. And then after, a minute, when kind of things tired out, he'd just look at you, give you the nod. And his thing was, he was always the first one to the penalty box. So he would sprint to the penalty box as fast as he could. But really, really good dude. From the Lower Mainland where I grew up, like, super good dude, super respectful, and a guy that, has done his pro career the hard way. He really has.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like the penalty minutes he's put up, and like the play style that he has, where he just goes out, hits anything that moves, and fights anybody and everybody, was just, it's insane. I don't know how he's done it for so long. But yeah, I'm a huge Garrett Hunt fan. Which I think he's actually playing overseas this year somewhere. He got a sussy for, oh man, I think he like only punched a dude a couple times, but of course over there their fights or their fight rules are so strict. So he got like a couple games for it, and it was at the very beginning of the season. I was like, yep, that's Garrett Hunt for you.
Oh yeah, to a T. I always say, like, most of our fights were, I would tell my coach, I'm like, they'd start Hunt the first shift, and if I wasn't starting, I'd be like, all right, like, let me be ready, because Hunt it was almost like a speed skater. Like, he was fast as shit, first of all, and he would just literally somebody would dump a puck in, and this guy was like I said, a speed skater down the wall, and would just meet somebody behind the net with a massive hit right off the hop. And I'd be, all right, well, I got to go out there, like, we got to answer the bell here to this. But yeah, man, he was a gamer for sure, an absolute gamer.
Absolutely. Well, that year you actually also fought a dude who played in the NHL for a little bit, but you fought Darryl Bootland, man.
Yeah, it's funny because Booter's my coach now in Kalamazoo, his brother. So yeah, man, Bootland, man, he was again another guy, like old savvy vet when I played, and I was kind of just like starting out, and he was an absolute gamer too. Like he was always mixing it up. And honestly, I think his biggest attribute that he had is, first of all, he could play. First of all, I mean, he played in the National Hockey League, first of all. And second of all, this guy was the best agitator ever. Like he would just poke you in the back of the legs when no one was looking, give you a face wash, and then walk away, and you're kind of wondering who had did it. But yeah, I remember the first time I fought him. We were in Colorado, and I mean that year I had so many fights because it was the wild west back then. I mean we had, Howe was out in Utah, and Colorado had like 6 guys that would be more than willing to go you and entertain you. And obviously being in Rapid City back then, before Colorado went to the American League, that was our closest trip. So we played them like 14 times during the season. So it was always, absolute wild slugfest. And their MO was, especially when they played at home, was, okay, if we're up by like 4 or 5, like we're going to fight for the fans. And if we're down by 4 or 5, we're fighting for the fans. So there was always scraps at home. And yeah, I remember I'd fought Tegan Zahn, and then I'd come out of the box, and my coach threw me out there. I was like, all right, like finally going to get, a shift here. And then Booter wanted to go. So we had a good go. I think I kind of got the better of him, just being the bigger guy. But again, nothing but respect for that guy, because he was a shithead on the ice.
Absolutely. Well, you brought it up that that was kind of, you had Howe out there in Utah, and that actually was your first run-in with Travis Howe that year. How was it fighting Travis Howe?
It's honestly, when you fight Howe, you really got to be technical, because he's big, he throws hard, and he knows what he's doing. So you can't. I find that guys that just want to trade with Howie, you're going to lose 10 out of 10 times. I mean, it's just not smart to do. You need to try to be, somewhat technical and have some kind of game plan going into it. So every time me and Howie would fight, we're both really long guys. So we would use our reach, use our jabs, body shots, and we would fight for, like 30, 40 seconds. Like they were long, he's got good cardio. So it was always good to fight him. And, obviously super tough kid, and nothing but respect for that guy over the years. And, good dude. And yeah, super, super tough guy.
Yeah. Travis Howe, it was fucking awesome to see him play against Neuber and the Everblades. And that was my introduction to the ECHL, was opening night, getting to see Howe and Neuber go at it. It was just an absolute marathon. You got Howe waving off the linesman, and it is just awesome. Those guys, their fights every time were just fucking marathons, and it was such a treat to watch this year. So I'm a huge Travis Howe guy for sure. So the next year though, you end up in Indy, and you actually fought a dude opening night. I don't know if it was opening night, but the first fight you had of the season was against a dude named Taylor Crunk, who's still playing today. Unfortunately, took a pretty wicked KO this year. But how was it fighting him?
Yeah, it was actually it was our second game of the season, but our first game, it was our home opener, our first one at home. So like you said, it was my first year in Indy. So, I wanted to make a name for myself, kind of like set my presence off the bat, and nothing better than playing Fort Wayne, who always plays, tough and rowdy, especially back then. So I looked at the stat pack. I kind of knew who was who. And, I actually had got in with it kind of with a guy named Garrett Ross first. And we were shoving each other in front of the net, and Crunk wasn't even on the ice. And I was asking him, like, do you want to go, blah, 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 blah. And he kind of like shrugged me off, said no, whatever. And he was skating off to the bench, and Crunk was coming on. This was during a whistle. So Crunk was coming on for his shift. He was like, Collins, if you want one, stay out here, stay out. So I remember looking at my coach, who, I've only known for 2 weeks at that time. And I'm like, hey, I'm staying on the ice because I'm going Crunk. And he was like, what? And I'm like, hey, I'm staying on the ice. He's like, did this guy, is he demanding ice time here? Like, what's going on here? And then he didn't fully realize, like, no, I'm staying out, like, for 1 second as a puck drop, because I'm going to go somebody here. So yeah, me and Crunk took our buckets off there at home in a sold out Indy Farmers Coliseum. And I knew he was a lefty. So I wanted to go in, as a lefty as well, not naturally being a lefty, and let him throw 2 or 3 lefts to feel comfortable, and then kind of rolled under, and then we kind of had a trade fest there, and I felt that I got the best of him there and kind of busted him up pretty good. But it was a good one, definitely entertaining and action packed for a home opener.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you alluded to it earlier in the podcast, but are you a big like footage guy? Like you like to go back and watch your fights and see what you could have done better, what you did well in that fight, stuff like that?
Absolutely. I love being a student of the game in that aspect. I love to watch like who's who, what's what, like what does this guy do? What are his tendencies? What are his weaknesses? And then go back after you fight someone, and have a fight and watch what you did. Okay, like, oh, I missed my grab here off the hop, or hey, I think I could have come with more undercuts and uppercuts and things like that. So honestly, I think you're an idiot if you don't do that, honestly, because I mean, hey, it's fighting, right? So I mean, somebody can get knocked out, so why not study it to try to be the best at your role?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I know, talking with Nico a little bit at the beginning of the season, he was a big footage guy. So every time Blashman would fight, he'd sit there and be like, oh, can you send me the video? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I got you. No worries. So shoot him over the video. And, he's the same way. He likes to study his fights and see what he could do better, stuff like that. But the following year, you actually ended up in Atlanta. How was it, playing in Atlanta with the Gladiators?
It was great. Over this course of from Rapid City to Atlanta, I got to play. I have played with my best friend Logan Nelson, who plays out in Rapid City right now, and so it's been just a blast playing with him for 5 years in a row, being on the same team. So I got an offer from them to come play, and I was like, hey, like you guys should take a look at my buddy Nelson too. So they signed him a couple days later, and playing out in Atlanta was a lot of fun. We had a really good group, and at the start we kind of as a team kind of were 500, and then right before COVID stopped the whole league, we were on a 10-game winning streak. So we were raring right up into the playoffs, and it was a fun spot. I mean, anywhere in the South Division, you really get lucky, with the heat and kind of being able to golf and things like that away from the rink too, is kind of relax. So it was a great fun year.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, well, a guy that you fought that year, and he's actually now on the Gladiators, but him and his brother got to be two of the toughest in hockey. But Dalton Thrower, how was that?
Yeah, no, it was we were up a bunch. I'd been battling with this guy for years, and we hadn't fought when he's run Allen, and just been battling all over the place kind of. And we were up by a bunch, and the game was over. But I think it was a Batman, Superman night or something like that, specialty jersey night or whatever. So I was like, oh, want to fight one for the crowd here to kind of whatever. And we kind of battled all game long or whatever. And like I said, I played against him for so many years before that, like I knew he was a tough kid and stuff like that. So, we had a go, and it was a real good go. And, he ended up actually catching me in the temple with a great shot. And, it was a great fight though. And, of course, like after that, wanted to rile up the crowd and things like that, to get the crowd into it near the end of the game. And, honestly, it was a great fight, and, really got the crowd into it for sure.
Yeah, and I've noticed it as well. You seem to you have like the almost like Ty Domi-esque the post-fight celebrations and stuff. When did you kind of start doing that to really get the crowd into it?
I think it was my first year in the ECHL. Like I kind of just like, I don't know. I think it might've been like one of my first ECHL fights. I was just, adrenaline was pumping, and I was like, oh fuck, that was great. That was awesome. And, I'm throwing up my hands to the crowd, and it kind of just stuck with me. Cause like I said, like at the end of the day, like it is the entertainment business, right? So that stuff sells tickets, that stuff brings people, puts their butts in the seats and stuff like that. So it's just a kind of an added touch that I've added, especially at home. If you can get the crowd really riled up behind the boys, it's just something that's kind of stuck with me throughout my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all for it, dude. I love seeing the post-fight antics and stuff like that. I think it's great. Why not, right? Well, this season you actually ended up playing for not only Norfolk but Kalamazoo. But we'll start off in Norfolk. How did you like your time in Norfolk?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, Virginia Beach is a beautiful spot away from the rink and stuff like that. Obviously, unfortunately, we weren't that good, which kind of down the line, with me being old, getting older, and and kind of wanting to compete in the Kelly Cup playoffs, I kind of wanted to go to a team that you had a shot at possibly making the playoffs. So that kind of, in the end, why I asked for a trade from there. But it was good. From my time there, and obviously it was a South Division, so had a lot of the big boys, the Howes and Neubers, the people like that, Blanchmont in the league that kind of made the South Division fun and entertaining.
Yeah, no kidding, man. It was a lot of fun watching the South Division. But one fight I got to ask you about too, and man, you hit him with some straight uppercuts. But Ian Parker, a big kid, trying to make a name for himself. I think he's like 6'9". I think he's the biggest dude in the league. How was it fighting a guy who's that tall compared to you?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's a challenge, right? Just from their physical stature of them having long arms. So a lot of times you find guys that are big like that, even if they're good or bad fighter, it doesn't really matter. They're so big and so lanky that, like, whether they want to fight or not, they can protect themselves half decent because of their reach. And so I knew that. I mean, I think it was our third or fourth time playing Orlando too. So I kind of knew who he was. And I had been trying to fight him at home, actually, to get a home fight. And we were up by 2 or 1 or 2. And so I was just going out for a regular shift, and he looked at me and he was like, "Hey, you want it?" And I was just like, kind of like caught off guard. I was like, not, I mean, yeah, I guess, if that's, whatever kind of thing. And yeah, we squared off, and like I said, I knew he was really long. So I wanted to make sure I used my jab and try to duck and dodge his punches because he had the reach on me. And then it ended up working really well that, I kind of jabbed, and then timed it perfectly where I could go on offense, and I kind of had him hunched over a little bit. Now it brought it to a fair advantage of, now he was kind of close to my height. And like you said, I kind of got the better of him with those uppercuts there, and busted up his nose pretty good. But hey, man, anyone that drops the gloves and is willing to answer the bell and try to rally for their team I got the most uttermost respect for, because obviously I've been doing it for 400 plus games now in the ECHL, and it's not easy. I mean, it's definitely not easy. It's takes a toll on your body, that's for sure, your hands, your shoulders, things like that. But anyone that's willing to sack up and put their body on the line for their team, I got nothing but respect for.
No, absolutely. And I've always said, like the win-loss record, that shit's, it's for the fans or whatever. I don't give a shit if a dude loses every fight. If he's willing to drop the gloves, man, I'm down with it, dude. So it's always, I never try to get wrapped up into, how many fights did he win? How many did he lose? Like, I don't give a shit. If you're throwing down for, 5,000 people in the stands for your team, that's all that fucking matters. But I got to ask you about him. Of course, he's, my personal favorite in the ECHL, getting to watch him. But you fought Neuber. I got to watch that fight on TV. How was it fighting Kyle Neuber?
Yeah, I mean, again, is a guy that we had it's funny because we have battled against each other from when I was in Atlanta to now, and it just never went to head. And they were up on us at home. I think they took it like 3-1, and I just got double shifted for a shift, and I saw that they put Neuber on after they scored, and I told my coach, like, put me on. So I went out there, and I was like, honestly, now looking back at it, I should have waited a shift or two to kind of catch my breath before I went out and asked them. Cause like I said, I had been double shifted before that, but I was like, hey, who knows the next time I'm going to be in the ice with this guy. I know he'll oblige. I know he'll fight. Like, I got to try to do something to get my team back into the game. And so, I went out there, even though I was half winded, and I went out there like, hey, you want noobs? You want one? Let's go. And then, we had our go or whatever. Now looking back at it, like you said, I kind of am a student of the game. So I've watched that fight 10,000 times in my head. And I wish I had a little bit more gas and not have been so tired going into it. But like you said, like, it doesn't matter, man. Win, lose, draw. Like, if you're showing up for your team, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember watching that game, and as soon as they went up 3, everybody's went up 3-0 on y'all. I was like, I told my wife, I looked over at her, I said, watch it. I said, Collins is out, Neuber's out. I said, watch this. And sure as shit, there you guys go. You're dropping the gloves. They're getting all rowdy for it. And I'm texting my buddies like, fucking Collins and Neuber just went at it, but fucking nerding out to it. But I'll ask you just about 2 more fights, man, and I'll get you on your way. I appreciate you taking the time. But one I got to ask you about, and this might have been one of the wickedest lefts I've seen landed in quite a while, but you fought Nick Isaacson from South Carolina. How did that fight come about? Because I believe you got the instigator on that call. So how did that go down?
Honestly, that was a super weird play as we were out, and my line mate had run a guy on the wall, and Isaacson had came over he wanted to go my line mate, and my line mate was kind of hesitant to go him. And so I was like, oh shit, like, I mean, my line mate's getting put in an awkward situation here. I don't know if he really wants to fight here, so I guess I will. So I stepped in for him, and I had actually knew a little bit about Isaacson before that game because he is friends with the guy that was on our team, and so he was like, yeah, you know, in junior in the OHL, like he was a tough kid, blah 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 blah. So I was like, all right, like, you know, my line mate doesn't want to fight, like I don't want us to look like bitches, like all right, like I'll fight you. So you know, we dropped our gloves, and you know, he hit off the hop. He hit me with a couple right off the hop, and then you know, I hit him with a couple, and he kind of like hunched over, and I was kind of like, okay, like it's over maybe. And then he like popped back up and tagged me with a good one. I was like, okay, we're still going. And then it just happened to be that as soon as I threw my right, he was throwing at the same time, and he was leading with his head, and I just happened to connect like solidly, you know, with that punch, and down he went. But I mean, it was kind of weird because I wasn't necessarily looking to go Isaacson or anything like that. It just happened to be my linemate made a hit. Wasn't sure if my linemate wanted to answer the bell, so I'll answer the bell for him, and that's kind of how that all came about. But yeah, it was a good one. I mean, you know, when your momentum's leaning forward with your head, and somebody's trying to put their fist through your head, it, you know, usually doesn't end up too well for them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say that now. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it was definitely a right hand. I've gone through so many damn fights now trying to put all these, this compilation together that I got going on and whatever for the ECHL fights of the year or whatever. So now I'm like they all like blend together now at this point. I've uploaded so damn many. And now I'm thinking about, I'm like at the reverse angle. Yeah, it was a right. But a guy I got to ask you about too, and my wife couldn't stand him when you guys would come to the Everblades Arena and play against us. And he's an absolute pest, and I love every second of it. But you were teammates with him was Noah Corson. How was it playing with him?
It was wild, to be honest. I think wild is the best way to describe Noah Corson. But honestly, that guy's got huge kahunas. I mean, he will stand in there with, I think that game, the first or second week in the season, when his line mate got hit, he fought Kearley.
Yeah, Kearley.
You know, who's way bigger than him, way out of his weight class, but like stood in there like a champ and just, you know, hell, he was there for his teammates. He's a wild card. He's funny guy because he's fearless, and he lets it be known that he's not afraid. Like he's completely okay with taunting you to your face, or like you said, being a rat and like getting in people's kitchens and slashing people in the back legs, and you know, diving down to the ice. And you know, so it was fun playing with him. You know, a lot of times he got me into a lot of scrums and stuff like that, just, you know, coming to his aid, you know, because I just, you know, pretty good player, you know, finished with 55 points this year too. So, you know, a lot of the times I'd be like, hey, like, you don't need to fight, like, let me come in here, kind of thing like that. But yeah, man, he's full of piss and vinegar, that guy.
Yeah, of course. And my wife just fucking hated him. And of course he'd go out and he'd score. Like he would chirp, he'd score a goal against the Everblades, and she'd be sitting there like, of course it's fucking Corson. And I'm just laughing my ass off. Cause I mean, I'm yes, I'm an Everblades fan, but I consider myself more of like a fan of players before, you know, teams and stuff. But yeah, I was loving every second of watching Corson on the ice. I'm like, this dude is just a fucking thorn in the side, and he'll put up points. It's phenomenal. But the last guy I'll ask you about, because he was a former Everblade, and you fought him on, I think it was like the Green Ice Night or whatever that you guys had out in Kalamazoo. But you fought Russell Jordan, and you got it to him pretty good. How was that fight going into it?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that Iowa had acquired him, you know, a couple days before, and we had played Iowa a couple weekends before, and they didn't really have a lot of toughness in their lineup. And so I was like, okay, like they must have acquired him to add a little sandpaper to their lineup. And again, it was really early and new. I was still new to Kalamazoo, so I wanted to, you know, it was at home. I knew it was going to be a big crowd because it was a Green Ice Night, wearing the special jerseys, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, you know what, like if I can get out there and, you know, make an impact my first shift to kind of get the crowd riled up to it, I think it'd be good for us. And it just happened to be he was out there the first shift, and he got a rim around the wall, and I finished him, and we kind of ended up shoving each other. And, you know, next thing you know, the gloves are off, and yeah, I hit him with a good uppercut there for sure. And, you know, I wish the fight would have gone longer, but, you know, I hit him with a good uppercut and, you know, got the crowd riled up, and we ended up winning the game. So, you know, that's all that mattered.
Yeah, for sure, man. That was a good one. He had the old, I think he had the old like pistol hands going to the penalty box, getting the crowd into it on I think it was like St. Patrick's Day was why the ice was green. So that was a good one. But so well, I'll get you on your way here in a second, man. This has been great talking with you, and I've enjoyed taking a trip through Anthony Collins' career, asking about some fights here and there. I had posted in an ECHL group before. I said, I'm interviewing Collins tonight. Or any questions you guys want me to ask? The biggest question I actually have is people requesting they're like, I want him to play in Cincy. I want him to come back to, Rapid City, stay in KZoo. So where are we going to see Anthony Collins next season?
I mean, it's a mystery, right? Being a vet, but I think that there's a good chance that you'll see me back in the Central Division next year. I really did enjoy my time in Kalamazoo, and they treated me really well, and it was a breath of fresh air coming there. So I think I owe it to the Kalamazoo fans and the staff there to go back and play a full season there and see what kind of damage we can do back in Kalamazoo.
Absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and talk some fights and tough guys with me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Like I said, your podcast is, I feel like it's just getting legs now and just getting going. And I think that it's going to turn a corner here and get even more publicity now. And like I said, keep posting those fights, because I know us fighters really like to watch and study guys, and makes it a lot easier for us.
Absolutely, man. Well, you have yourself a good night, Anthony. Thank you.
You too. Talk to you
later, bud.